Warning. This program contains strong language, auditory violence, and mental nudity. It is intended only for mature audiences. Listener discretion is advised.
Welcome to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions. With your host, Berserker, this is Unshackled Fury.
The beta has come at last. Fall is around the corner, and most likely, too, is our official foray into the Dragon Isles. So welcome back to your uncensored home for World of Warcraft news and opinions, Unshackled Fury. I'm your host, Berserker. This is episode 113, and on today's show, we're discussing the great place that the Dragonflight beta is in, the future of add-ons, and a bit about Wrath of the Lich King Classic. But first, I just want to say a few words of appreciation to folks that have checked in following the last episode. I know it was a bit heavy and life things going on and all sorts of stuff happening on my end, but I really appreciate the folks that checked in to see how things were going. You know, still some things we're dealing with, some things that we've resolved. Obviously, don't have COVID anymore, and we're learning to live down a member of the family, and there's still a few things going on, such as I'm supposed to be officiating a wedding at the end of this month, but the venue might burn down. If you look up in the news, if you're around Northern California, you well know about the Mosquito Fire. They get these names from local places. I think there's Mosquito Road. But if you look at the town of Forest Hill, that's where this wedding is supposed to be held. And the fire was basically right where the venue is. And they've so far been able to hold it off, but we don't know if that's for good or if that could come back. We don't know. So still dealing with a few of those things. So just wanted to say, though, that sometimes when you're doing a podcast, right, like I've discussed here, it's part news, it's part therapy for me, and sometimes it feels like you're just kind of screaming into the void, but when folks reach out, you know, it means a lot. Yeah, a few kind words, surprisingly, even to this black heart, it means something, so I just want to say thank you to all of you who reached out, and you probably can tell by the sound of my voice that something is going on. And so, this is going to be, for the first time ever, a short episode. This is going to be a short one. There's just no way getting around it. I am still recovering, I use that in quotations, from a concert that I went to the other night. I took my dad to see Sammy Hagar and George Thorogood, who were nearby for a concert, and it was fucking amazing, and we were screaming and singing loud and doing the whole thing. So my voice is still jacked up, but we're gonna power through, do our best to get something good out here, at least something mildly entertaining and somewhat informative for your listening pleasure. And just as an aside, Sammy Hagar is gonna be 75 in about a month, less than a month. How this man is gonna be 80 in 5 years, I don't know. His energy is off the charts. Dude looks like $1 million. It was well worth the money. It was, at least for his set, 2 hours of people just standing and going apeshit. George Thorogood, good old-fashioned classic rock and roll music. Doesn't get any better than that. That guy, all of them, can still play. It was awesome. So anyway, gonna be a bit of a shorter episode. Appreciate you all hanging with me, and we'll try to do our best to power through. Before we get into a rage segment today, quick note that I made an appearance for the Rolling Restart podcast, which should be coming out, I believe, the day after this. This episode should drop on Monday the 12th, and I believe that episode will drop on Tuesday the 13th. But had a great time, as always, chatting with Ro and Manny and Cinder. We don't get together all that often, but when we do, it's always a very good conversation. I feel like between the four of us, we've got a lot of different bases covered, and good chat, good solid hour plus, hour 15, hour 20, maybe even a little longer. So please, go check that out. Rolling Restart, it'll be out probably the 13th or so, and always good to chat with our buddy Ro. So, I almost had 2 rage segments for this week, and later on, I'll get into the potential second that was averted. But I've got a piece now. I've got to lay it down, because it's one thing when you're really excited about something, and it's a whole other thing when that excitement gets crashed due to the most basic and ridiculous oversight. Let's get into it. Let's rage. Anyone who's listened to this podcast for really any length of time, and anyone who's talked to me personally or knows me, even to the slightest degree, knows that Wrath of the Lich King is my favorite expansion. I had my best rating during that era. I think I had the most fun. I was most engaged in the story at that time. So the revival of Wrath in the form of Wrath Classic has been a great thing for me to look forward to. I think for a lot of folks to be able to dive back into those halcyon days of Icecrown Citadel and all of the madness that was going on up there in Northrend. So with the announcement of Wrath Classic, I knew what my plan was going to be heading in to the launch of that era. Now, friend of the show, Rommel, he's been banging away in Classic and leveling and doing his thing and knocking it out, and I am just blown away by his dedication. But he and I, we've always known that when Wrath launched, that we would meet up together. We would be back there in Northrend. We will be back there doing our thing, kicking ass, having some fun leveling when that comes around here at the end of the month. So I knew I needed to prepare, and I knew that the best way, really the only way, that was going to be possible was a boost. I knew that they always do these character boosts now because they want to get you right in. They know there's people like me that I didn't level through good old Vanilla Classic. I didn't level through Burning Crusade Classic. But for Wrath, I wanted to be ready, and I didn't want to have to put up with all the mishigas of the prior expansions and original version of Warcraft. So they're going to sell it to me, and they did. And I bought it. You know it. I bought it for $50. I'll talk a little bit more about this later. But for $50, basically, I got myself a level 70 character boost. And that's fine. You know, the kid can eat bologna sandwiches for a week while I use that good deli ham money for Dad to get a character boost. So I got that character boost, and it comes with appropriate gear, it says, so that way you can get in, you got a mount, you got gear, you got a little pet, you got some other stuff, you're ready to go, boom, log in, fired up, ready to go. See that login screen, that shot of Icecrown, Sidrigosa flying around, that version of the login theme, just chills. Like, I don't say that very often because I think it sounds ridiculous, but it happened. It happened. It was real and true. Seeing that, just a flood of emotions and feelings and things that I had forgotten about. Jumping in. There's Berserker, because you know I reserved the name. Get in there. See that gear. It's in a bag. All right, we're going to go in, pop it open. I see it all there. All right, let's go to the Warrior Trainer. They got quests. Let's go there. Because what's the big thing about Wrath? Going from BC to Wrath, that was the big deal for warriors. That's right, Titan's Grip. What is Titan's Grip? That is the ability that allowed warriors to carry a two-handed weapon in each hand. So, the ultimate warrior fantasy. Two-handers, smashing big, heavy weapons, dealing damage, going berserk. Get my talents. All right, I'm ready. put that gear on. Get all that stuff stepping on the plate gear. All right, there's a two-hander. One slot. Where's the other one? Where's the other one? Where's the other two-handed weapon? Where'd the other two-handed weapon go? Searching my bags. Looking in my bags. No, that's a one-hander. No, that's another one-hander. No, that's yet another one. That's 3 one-handed weapons. That's a shield. No, don't need that. Keep looking, keep looking. Nope. They shorted me a one-handed weapon. A two-handed weapon, sorry. Two-handed weapon. Too many one-handers. Not enough two-handers. For $50, they shorted me the one weapon I needed to complete the fantasy to be ready to jump in a Wrath Classic. I ended up having to go to the auction house because they gave you a whole 100 gold. And I had to go buy a weapon, not nearly as good as the one that was granted via the boost. But at least, I guess, I have one now, and I can get it done. But come on, Blizzard. You gotta do better than that, especially at that price point. I know. This is a very limited subset of the entire crowd. I get it. I understand. I know this is first world problems here. But at that price point, knowing damn well that people like me are jumping in because that was the game changer, to then short us the thing that we need to do the thing that we wanted to do, I mean, come on. You got to do better than that. That is ridiculous. That is just ridiculous. How am I supposed to go apeshit? Hog wild. Berserk. Maniacal. Wild. With only one two-handed weapon. I can't. It can't be done. It cannot be done. It literally cannot be done. Have you ever tried to smash something with just 2 one-handed weapons or 1 two-handed weapon and nothing in your other hand but, I don't know, your junk? It's just not the same. I dare you. Go out in front of your house. Grab 2 one-handed weapons and go hack on a tree or a training dummy. I know you all have one. And then take 1 two-handed weapon and go hack on it. Yeah, I mean, it's better with the two-handed, right? But then put that other two-handed weapon. Put 2 two-handed weapons and then go berserk on that tree or that training dummy that's in your front yard that all your neighbors wonder why you have out there. I mean, you all do, right? It's just not the same. So Blizzard, hear this plea. If you can hotfix this, if you can change this, please make sure that warriors, Fury warriors across the land are granted 2 two-handers so that they may slay in thy name appropriately. This is my plea. Thank you. Now, with that being said, do have a little news to cover. And we're going to talk about some news. And we're going to talk about some Wrath news. And maybe something really good that's coming up. Let's get into it. So obviously, as I mentioned, and by the sound of my voice, there's one reason why this episode is going to be shorter today. But the other one is, quite frankly, it's been a little quiet. A little too quiet. Or, in our house, see if you get this reference, it's a little too Wrath. R-A-P-H. A little too Wrath. And what I mean by that is we're at the state in the beta where there aren't monumental sea changes being introduced like a tidal wave. There's not a whole bunch of earth-shattering stuff happening that, frankly, I consider to be all that newsworthy. It's a lot of little stuff. Now, it's good little stuff. It's stuff like feedback, class feedback, that's coming in kind of, spurts here and there. People are, commenting and giving feedback on their class trees or talking about things here and there that don't work. Little life quality of life improvements. There's now going to be a guy telling you how long it's going to be till the next boat comes on the docks. I don't know why it took so long to get that, but that's a great little thing. So it's a lot of stuff like that coming in, and nobody really getting all crazy about anything in terms of something that's happened that's going to break the game and it's going to shatter communities. And there's just nothing like that. You remember when they added the portal room and there was a whole kerfuffle about that? Yeah, we don't even have anything like that right now. It's just smooth, a little too smooth right now. With the beta going and people getting in it wave by wave, I'm starting to hear from people that I haven't heard from in a long time. People checking in and saying, hey, this is actually looking kind of like it's in a good spot. People that I play with regularly, people that maybe have a stronger opinion about the game than others, giving praise. Makes me feel weird to hear some of the most hypercritical people I know saying good things about the state of the beta. But I take that as a good sign, and I'm not saying that as I'm overly worried. I am. It's kind of like you're waiting for that other shoe to drop. Is there another shoe? I don't know. It's a good sign, I think, for us as players and Blizzard and the game that this far into development, this far into the beta, there haven't been any earth-shattering moments like that where the forums are on fire and Reddit's on fire and people are just hammering away on something that just went totally sideways. There's some borrowed power thing that people hate, which I think the elimination of the borrowed power mechanic or feature for this expansion has probably saved the game. Just as we come away from that era where, you know, we had an artifact or we had whatever else that we had to build up and do a thing, since that time, getting away from that, I know I'm realizing how much effect kind of after the fact that had, but there were people that were much louder about that earlier on, of course. But getting away from that and seeing people kind of coming around now, saying, hey, you know what? This Dragonflight, it's looking pretty good. I take that as a really positive sign. So, as I've said from the beginning, cautiously optimistic. Everything that I'm seeing is looking good. The dragon riding, I believe for the most part, is going to go over like gangbusters. Manny had a great idea when we talked on Rolling Restart about something that the dragon riding could be used for, particularly the dragon riding races. And I think that's a phenomenal idea, and it's stuff like that they're going to be building on. Now, it's not perfect. You know, the dragon riding isn't going to be for everyone. And there will undoubtedly be features that people don't like or kind of like meh about. But overall, I think we're heading in a really good direction with time winding down. Because if we're in the beta, opening the beta up, we're getting there. Time is winding down for this phase of things. So one of the things that I think makes this era different, if you will, is the way in which the game is now being modernized. And one of the largest and perhaps most basic is the UI. Now, those of us that have been around, especially people who raid, I don't know a lot of people. In fact, I've only known one or two that still use the stock user interface that comes with the game. Just the base bars and mini-map and characters and, you know, the portraits and the whole thing. I've only known a handful, maybe less, that have continued to use that after a certain point of the game. I feel like there's a natural transition where perhaps you're new to the game and you're using the stock UI, but then once you get to max level and maybe start taking on other challenges, rating, Mythic Plus now, whatever you have, that you realize, oh, I need to make some changes so I can access things quicker or organize things differently that, work better for my brain or work better for the challenge that we need to do. That sort of thing, that's what we've been dealing with in terms of the UI for, years, since OG Vanilla Warcraft, the real one. But in Dragonflight, for the first time, Blizzard has decided we're going to take a look at that user interface and we're going to update it. And we've talked a little bit about this before, but they ended up putting out a really great post last week. World of Warcraft Dragonflight HUD, heads-up display, and UI, user interface, revamp. And in it, they go on to show you some of the updates that they have made. And for any of us that have used add-ons over the years, this all looks very, very familiar. For instance, one of the first things that they show an example of is just the user interface itself and how certain things have changed in terms of the size of the minimap, how that is more prominent now, or the health bar being more prominent, how they've changed some of the things that they had on there to make it cleaner. So that's something that I believe many players do with their UI is move things in such a way where it's very clean, it's easy to read, so they can do the things that they need to do. Another thing that they talked about, and I know I've had the same add-on for this for years, which is combining my bags. So when you pull up bags, right, you open your bags, you hit the B, and then you got all these bags. It's disorganized, it's hard to read, and so having just a bag add-on, a bag management add-on, that's something that many of us have had forever. Well, now they've worked in something as simple as you can already just combine your bags in the stock user interface. Moreover than that, things like I know for myself, I've used ElvUI for many, many years. I played around with several others in the past, but that was the one I ended up settling on, and I've used it with relative success. I think it's done the things that I need to do, but any of us who've used one of those kinds of add-ons where you can manage almost every aspect of your user interface down to, not just how many buttons you have, how many rows you have, how many numbers of buttons you can have per row, how big those are, but also the distance between each one. They call that padding. That level of control over your user interface. We've always had to go to a separate add-on for all of that. But now that will now be part of the stock user interface. The griffins on the side of the bars, something that people, I think, overlook as one of the really cool aspects of the stock UI. Not only have they updated those, but if you still want to get rid of them, you can. You can hide the art. You can move everything, right? Another big advantage to the add-ons that we've had in the past. You can move all this stuff around. You want your portrait and your target, all of that to be one place, cool. You want your minimap somewhere else, cool. You want your bar somewhere else, great. You want your party stuff here. Where are your buffs? Boom. Where are your debuffs? Over there. You can now move all of that in the stock UI. You can make things bigger. You can make things smaller. It's, in my eyes, getting really hard to convince myself to continue to use some of those management add-ons that I've used in the past. Now, will I do it right away? I don't think so. There are still a few items more advanced than that the stock UI can't quite handle, but they've talked about in this post here things that they are going to continue to look at to update. One of them being the quest tracker, raid frames, more updates to the art they mentioned here. So there's still more to come, and perhaps maybe in another update or two, it's going to be very difficult for me to continue to use resources on my PC to something that I really don't need anymore. As a raider, right, trying to keep all of that to a minimum, all those resources to a minimum, so everything is flowing into keeping the raid running smooth, so I can see what we're doing, all of that. Yeah, it's looking really, really nice. And on top of that, anyone who's been on voice chat and let's say you're in a raid and somebody needs to say something, and you can hear right in the background, somebody just hammering away on that keyboard, right? Well, now, under accessibility, one of the things that they're adding is a press and hold casting. And when enabled, the player can press and hold a keyboard hotkey to continually cast a spell on an action bar without repeatedly pressing the button. So, I'm sure that all the mages out there are going to get cramps from just holding down one or two buttons for hours straight. Congratulations to you. But I think that is an amazing change and something that maybe for those of us in an older segment and you're starting to feel perhaps the creep, or maybe you have the full-on ravages of arthritis, this is a pretty welcome change. But it's things like this that they're finally introducing into the game, that they're using Dragonflight as an opportunity to do these sorts of updates, that gets me really excited. And it makes me feel like we are entering a new phase. And as it gets explored more, as they continue to add to it, I think more people are going to gravitate towards that and go, yes, I don't know why we didn't do this before, but this is a very welcome change. And it makes it friendlier to stay within the game. One of the complaints that I've long had is the game has gotten to a point where you have to go to Wowhead, or you have to go to some outside resource, or you have to go to some third party to get what you need to do the thing you have to do. And the more that they're able to build that within the game itself, I think creates a more welcoming environment to all players. At some point, I don't think they'll ever want to put Wowhead out of business, but maybe you have a tie-in somewhere where that database is in the game. So you don't necessarily have to go to somewhere else to pull up information about maybe a character. Maybe they don't need people doing the whole walkthrough on how to do a quest. They want to leave some of that to the imagination. But maybe you want more information about a particular character when you see them. So when you mouse over them, you have an option to say, hey, I'd like to know the history about Velen, or I'd like to know the history of this random character out in the middle of nowhere. Because sometimes characters show up in later expansions that, unless you played through earlier expansions, you may not know why somebody is so important. So rather than having to go to a third party and check that out, maybe you could mouse over them and it would be able to pull that up from a database. Those are the kinds of things I think they're going to continue to work towards to make the game more welcoming to players. And I'm here for it. What I'll say is I'm here for it. So that's one of the great things that they've been adding to the game and working on. If you want to see more of the rundown yourself, you can check that article out on the World of Warcraft website itself. Outside of that, classes continue to receive their tweaks. Like I said, they are getting regular feedback from the developers. I know there's a couple, I think Priests and another one were kind of hanging out there looking for some feedback, and it looks like more of that is starting to come. But continue to, if you can, if you have access, continue to test this stuff out. As I've long said, if you have the privilege to do that and you have the time to get in there, test it out. Try it out. See what works. See what doesn't. Give them feedback. Because now more than ever, they're doing something with it actively. So get in there. One of the mysteries of the Dragon Isles has finally been solved. Something that we've talked about as a community for a number of years, is assuming they exist, which we always thought they did, but where were they? They're on the backside of Azeroth or something else. We finally know the location of the Dragon Isles. So there was some speculation as to where they might be, but where they are, as it turns out, they've updated the map. Where the Dragon Isles are is in that upper right-hand corner of the Azeroth map. So over to the right of Northrend and above the Eastern Kingdom. So in that sort of corner up there. So it's a little funny looking at the map now, where we used to have just the two giant land masses, east and west, and now we had Northrend, and then we started getting all these other areas filled in. So the map of Azeroth is starting to get blown out a little bit more. They'll have to continue to update those models of the Azerothian globe. But one of the things I've noticed too, and I think it's kind of cool, I assume it's intentional, is, the reason why Azeroth, and at least the landmasses that we know are the way that they are, is because of the sundering, right? At one point, there was just one giant landmass, we think, on Azeroth. There was the Well of Eternity that was right in the middle of it. It exploded, and then all those landmasses, I don't know how this works geologically, I'm not going to try to make sense of it, blows everything apart. And so when you look at it, and you look at where the Maelstrom is right there in the middle, and you look at all these land masses that are around it, more of the islands towards the middle a bit, and then you have sort of these larger masses on the outside, it does kind of start to make sense. It starts to look like, yes, there was a larger landmass here, and it's getting blown out, and here's where all these things are after thousands and thousands of years. But you can also see that there's room for more. There's still room for more. If this is what we're doing, there's still room for more. And I don't know what old god complex is hidden away somewhere under a shroud of mist. Maybe in the upper left-hand corner. I don't know. But it seems to me like they're showing us where there is potentially still more room to grow. So we'll see about that. And for now, Dragon Isles, we know where they are. Speaking of the beta, a lot of people have gotten in. A lot of people have still not gotten in. I believe there will be an opportunity here, because there always is, to get some beta keys. I will tell you, my dear listener, I will attempt to get any keys that I can. Typically, if Blizzard grants us influencers beta keys, you, the listener or viewer, have to do something for said keys. So, if I do get some beta keys, just be ready. I do have something in mind. It would be easy, but for me, it would be hilarious. Only a mild bit of embarrassment, but I think you could all do it. So I will attempt to get those. So if you're still not in the beta and you signed up and you're like, dear God, why did they never let me in? I'm trying to get some, and I'm trying to get you an opportunity to get in here. So keep listening, keep watching all the socials. I will, of course, post and put stuff everywhere. My plan is, if I do get some, the contest that I will run between episodes, so it'll be about a 2-week window there, and then the winner will be announced on the show. Winners will be announced on the show, and I'll have a whole thing for that. So that's something I hope to do. We'll keep an eye on it. In the meantime, like I said, we're in the beta. We know that there was a leak date, release date of late November. If that holds true, we gotta be hearing something soon, because walk that backwards, we're looking at probably mid to late October for a pre-patch, and they'll announce it a month ahead would be my guess. So we're getting close. We have to be getting close. As soon as we know, obviously we'll say something here. We'll promote all of that, but be ready. The countdown is really on. There's the state of the beta right now. Everything is looking good. We have not seen anything with the raids other than basic information. That is the one kind of holdout right now that I think will bring potentially some controversy, depending on how the raids play out, what they look like. Do they end up releasing all tiers at the same time? We'll find out. I think, again, it would be awesome and hilarious that Mythic, Heroic, Normal, LFR, just load them all up at the same time. I think it'd be great, but keep your eyes open, folks. I'm sure of it, we'll be hearing something pretty soon. Switching over to Wrath of the Lich King Classic news. Scourge Invasion now live. Looks like it accidentally went early. I don't know how that happens, but apparently the Scourge Invasion, the it's hard to say classic because it's classic on classic. The notorious, we'll say the notorious Scourge Invasion from Wrath of the Lich King is now live on classic servers. So if you never got the chance to experience the much beloved and maligned at the same time Invasion, go check it out. It is a classic for a reason. It made its name for a reason. We've seen these invasions a number of times, but this was really the one that got people's attention because it went wild. It was everywhere. Nobody could escape. I mean, that was the whole point, right? To generate interest and to make you feel like something was happening. It really, truly was a world event in multiple senses. So that has now gone live. So if you're on Classic servers, jump in there, experience it, have a lot of fun. And I say that full well knowing that server queues for Classic Realms have exploded. Blizzard ended up having to put out a very long post with multiple comments and other feedback pieces detailing exactly what is going on, what they're doing about it, and to boil it down, I just don't think that they were ready for the influx of players for Wrath Classic. Like I said earlier, I know it's my favorite, but I also know it's a lot of other people's favorites. And so the chance to check it out, even just to see it, without anything else, just on its face, to see Wrath Classic as it was at the time, of course there's going to be a lot of interest. But they were not ready. There is a stable Classic community that already exists prior to Wrath Classic, and now those groups are being inundated. You have these mega servers that are just these jam-packed servers that are just getting crashed on. And so they have had to take a number of drastic steps on Blizzard's side in order to control the stability of these realms, including disabling new character creations on certain mega realms. They've locked them, which unfortunately does prevent people from coming back or coming in and joining their friends, and that's not something that they want to do, but as they say, it's untenable, the situation with these mega servers, so they have to do something. So if you are on a server or you've set up on a Classic server that is having these sorts of problems, there are other servers that you can go to. There are lots of comments out there kind of directing you to where you can go. But for instance, they're giving sort of some numbers here, and they're saying that there are twice as many or 4 times as many people jumping on these servers as there were back in 2008. So if you can jump into Classic, it's a good time. You may have to wait in a queue. I've seen many people posting memes and comments and other things about what that looks like, but be patient or try to create one on some of the less full servers. There are folks out there that are directing traffic, like traffic cops out there. But that will help you hopefully get into where you want to go. And so this sort of leads me into where the potential second rage portion of this show was going to come in. As part of the launch of Wrath of the Lich King Classic, there have been posts and videos and other things that Blizzard is putting out to help generate interest and kind of go back and nostalgic deep dive, all that sort of stuff. And there's a great video that was put out. Tom Chilton, who you may remember from those days, who's now, I think, on the the unnamed survival game. I don't know. He's somewhere still in the company, I believe. And another gentleman whose name, forgive me, I cannot remember at the moment. The two of them talked about the building of the Death Knight and how that class came together, the things that they wanted to do. And in the video, they talked about how at one time they had considered giving warriors an ability like Death Grip. Essentially, that it sounds like a meat hook type thing where you throw out like a chain with a hook and you pull somebody in and you'd be able to wail on them and go from there. And they talked about something like that they had considered, but then they ended up giving the Death Grip ability instead to the Death Knights. And when I heard that, I was not happy, because while I may never get my headbutt ability that I've been asking for all these years, that is one of the coolest things I had ever heard of for warriors, and I had never heard anyone anywhere ever mention that was a possibility. So to throw that out there and then to immediately take it back, like a Death Grip, I was stunned. I was beside myself. I was apoplectic. I was upset. I was mad. I was furious. But then, on the beta, a savior arrived in the form of Wrenching Impact, where warriors will now have the ability, should you so talent, that when your Heroic Leap lands, at least for now, you will pull in 4 random, if there's a bigger group, 4 enemies within 10 yards right to you. So it's sort of like, kind of like a reverse death grip. It's a little bit different, but I love it. And so that did put a little salve on that wound where it was so quickly taken away, this great ability that I'd never heard of. But then they're like, you know what? We got something else that's super cool. And I am very excited about that. So that's just a quick aside. But if you haven't had a chance to check out these videos yet, there's been a couple of them about building Northrend, about building the Death Knights. Great insight. And just, if you were around at that time, awesome nostalgia bombs to see what it was, what it took, the minds that were involved in on how they went about creating this great expansion. And there was also recently an awesome article about Storm Peaks and Icecrown, kind of diving into those 2 zones and giving you more information about those. While Grizzly Hills has the best music, I think Storm Peaks may be the best zone. Maybe. You know, those Frost Giants and all the situation there. Obviously, that's where Ulduar is. Great place. So if you haven't had a chance, check those out as well. Going back really quickly, I mentioned earlier the upgrade, the purchasable upgrades. There are 2 versions of this, by the way. So if you want to just play Wrath Classic, it's part of your sub. You don't have to purchase it. But if you're like me and you want to run and gun and you want a 70 right away, you do have a couple of options. One is the Heroic upgrade for $50. One is the Epic upgrade for $80. It's just inflation, man. It's running fucking wild. The difference, the $30 difference, is you get a Kalawak Whalebone Glider flying mount for your classic character and a Tuskar Shore Glider flying mount and 30 days of game time. So you're basically paying for one game time deal. That's like $15. So it's another $15 for 2 mounts, or $15 for 1 mount on retail. If you only play that or one on classic. So I just did the Heroic upgrade because I just wanted the 70. I'll never use those mounts, and I honestly don't need. I already have a 6-month sub. We're good. So that's what I did. But if you want to get into it right away, those are your 2 options. On top of that, there is another promotion going on right now where if you want to get an amazing new mount, which perfectly blends kind of the old with the new, there's a Frost Brood Proto-Worm mount, which is sort of like an older dragon model, like the old day. We had the Frost Brood dragon from achievements in Icecrown Citadel. Take one of those, throw in a dash of sort of the modern dragon aesthetic, and you get this amazing new mount. And all you have to do to earn it is play through the Death Knight starting experience on Classic, which honestly I would recommend everybody do just anyway, just for the experience of it, because it is one of the great introductions, I think, for any class, any character in the game. Because right away, for a Lich King mark like myself, to start out, you make your character and you're in Acheris. And there's the Lich King right there. Boom. Right away. Giving you quests, making you do your thing, and you're off and running. It's an amazing experience. Only takes an hour or 2. And 1, you get to experience it as it was back in the day, in its true form. Amazing. But 2, you get this really cool mount out of it. So I've created a character. I haven't run through it yet. Haven't quite had the time, but it will be happening soon because I can't wait to see it and get a sweet mount for retail, which I'm pretty sure I will use. And the last thing about Wrath is the Wrath of the Lich King Classic launches on the 26th of this month of September. So my next episode will be dedicated all to Wrath. We're going to talk about the story. We're going to talk about my experiences, talk about maybe some of the legacy of it. But the next episode is going to be all about Wrath of the Lich King. So if you're interested in at all in that, tune in on that episode should be out on the 26th. So maybe you listen while you are playing through. Last thing before I go, coming up on the World of Warcraft schedule, we have the Castle Nathria Fated Raid coming up this week, and I have not, or currently, and I have not gotten the Jellycat mount. I haven't done any of that stuff yet. Don't know if I will. I do like it. It is pretty cool. Maybe somebody wants to throw me a carry. I mean, who knows? Maybe I could, I don't know, jump in with some randos. Who knows? But that's coming up this week. And then next week, starting on the 19th, we'll have the Sanctum of Domination will be the next Fated Raid. We'll have Pirates Day coming up. I know a lot of people get excited about that. But more than anything, perhaps the greatest of all Azerothian holidays, Brewfest. You know how much I love it. First episode, I dedicated my rage portion to something about it. It's one of my favorites. The sights, the sounds, the time of year. If there is, oddly enough, one thing in game and a time of year when it feels most like Warcraft to me, it's playing Brewfest in October. Weather's cooling off, windows are open. It's not 1,000 fucking degrees here where I live. It's such a beautiful time of year. So, something to look forward to coming up soon. We got some great things coming up on the horizon, folks. Like I said, beta's looking good. Dragonflight news coming in. Some big news. I'm fairly confident we'll be hitting fairly soon. Wrath of the Lich King Classic right around the horizon, and then Brewfest sandwiched in there as well. So you could do Brewfest during Wrath Classic. That might be too much for me to handle. I might just explode if I get to experience that one more time. But we'll do it. We'll have fun. We'll see you all out there. All right. Well, that will do it for this episode. My thanks to all of you for listening. And remember, you can always follow me and this show on Twitter at Berserker Rage and Unshackled_Fury. You can also join our Discord, links for which are in the profile of the show on Twitter and on our Bonus Roll Productions page. Feel free to contact the show with your questions, comments, or otherwise through any of those resources or unshackledfury.com. And you can find this show wherever you get your podcasts. So once again, thank you for listening. Remember to keep your swords wet and your banners high. And we'll see you next time. Farewell.